Alright,
Yeah.
well, spawning in the northeastern position is our red Terran. He is on Team Relentless Heroes. His name is Optical. And spawning in the southwestern corner, we have a player from Team Revoki. His name is Noxon.
This is a Grandmaster, I know that. Was, at least.
Noxon?
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's Grandmaster this season as well.
By the way, thanks for letting me know the stream was or the game was starting.
Yep.
I was like, you're like, okay, spawning. I'm like, oh my god, they're spawning.
So, yeah, I mean, TVZ on this map, I would expect early pressure from the Terran, and you just expand behind that.
Yeah, a lot of Zergs dislike this map now because Terran have kind of figured out if you siege up in the middle, it's kind of hard to actually attack into you. Early pressure kind of was a necessity early on this map, but it's gotten a lot more, at least against Zerg as Terran, it's a lot easier to facet spam. People have figured out bunker placement and the ability to actually defend against any super early 2-base aggression. So it's not a necessity for OpTicalRH. Oh, this is the team that Premier's on.
That is true.
Yeah, forgot about that guy. And this is pretty standard. Noxon's going for a speed expand. Elite's going for speed first because 2 rats pressure is pretty hard to hold off, especially with these little nooks and crannies that Terran can bunker up in.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart choice. We do see a lot of Zergs now getting their expansion up a little later, around 17 to 21.
Yeah.
It's being a little bit safer.
So we have a gas going down for Optical. We need to see whether or not he's going for the tech lab on the barracks or opening with the factory, because the factory is gonna open a whole area of a horizon. Or what am I trying to say? There's a lot of stuff you can do with a factory. Blue
I
Flame
liked
Hellion.
what you're going for, though.
Yeah, thank you. I was working on it, but it just didn't come out of my mouth correctly.
So we do see a reactor going down, with 1 Marine holding, and second depot going down.
Oh, he's going for a reactor. That's pretty weird. Going for a reactor this early on kind of indicates a lot of pressure, not just I'm gonna throw a few Marines at you. The reason I'm saying this is because going for a reactor is kind of a big commitment. You're really committing to Marines early on. I mean, usually you'll see just 2 barracks. It's a lot easier to transition out of that opposed to throwing down a reactor. But he's going for the factory now, which is completely different than what I thought he was going to do.
Yeah, and is this a way to get to Blue Flame Hellions? I'm not 100% sure.
See what? There's so many different builds for Blue Flame Hellion. It's a possibility he's going to be going for tech lab on the factory and then switch with the barracks, but I've never seen it done that way. I've actually never seen a build like this, period.
I think if he lifts and then pressures with some Hellions,
yeah,
and expands, that's the safest option from here on out, because just pure Marines while you're getting that factory is kind of risky.
Yeah, I mean, Noxon went for the safest build possible. He took guys out of gas as of right now, dropping even a spine crawler at the end of his main base. I mean, he's playing the safest he possibly can, and he poked in and saw a lot of Marines. I don't think he saw the reactor yet. No, he didn't. So he has to assume that it's at least a 2 rats because it's a reactor, obviously. So double the Marines are being produced. So I kind of want to assume that Noxon's gonna be thrown out of Baneling Nest pretty soon here.
Is this a factory-based all-in that we're seeing here?
Going for 2 factory off 1 base is very abnormal. I can't imagine what he's going to be producing out of the second one, though. Because he's going for Blue Flame. This is a really heavy all-in, a super-duper heavy all-in.
Yeah, and I think that Blue Flame will do well. It's just whether he can hide this well enough so that 8 spine crawlers don't go down.
Well, I mean, we have 2 going up already. I mean, Noxon's doing a really good job of playing blindly, but the thing is that Siege Saints obviously are dominant over spine crawlers. What Noxon needs to do is scout what's going on, sacrifice this Overlord that's sitting on the side of the base. And actually, did he already sacrifice one?
Nope.
He didn't? Why is he supply capped?
I think it got I think it was just miscontrolled at the top.
Okay.
Because all his vision sees is the barracks with the reactor, and then the one factory.
Gotcha.
He doesn't even see the switch yet.
Yeah. So he's going for a Baneling nest, which, I mean, it made sense. He sees a ton of Marines. The only issue with that is obviously Siege Saints versus Banelings. The tank will reign supreme in the most, at least for the most part. A lot of SCVs being pulled too.
Yeah, RH is moving out. Sorry, Optical. And, I don't know, he could just let these Zerglings in.
Yep, he's doing it. Oh, no, saw it just in time, so... Looks like Ben Novak may have DC'd. Yeah. We're sorry about that. We're going to get this going just in a minute once Ben Novak decides to drop. Sorry for the interruption. But anyway, in this state of the game, right now we have Optical moving out with a pretty scary army. He has a lot of Blue Flame Hellions, a lot of Siege Chains. I mean, it's really looking good for Optical at this point. Only for Notson at this point, he's getting a Baneling nest, which is about to finish, so he hasn't morphed any in, and his gas is a little bit low. He only has 125, so 5 Banelings matched him. He morphed in, and at that point, if they're not controlled absolutely perfectly, then the Siege Chains will clean up everything else, because the Marines are obviously going to be cared for very well. On the contrary, this is a pretty heavy all-in. If Optical doesn't kill him with this, is basically game, so it's going to be some pretty stellar defense coming out of Notson for this to work correctly. But 2 Spine Crawlers are up at the natural, and he's pulling all of his drones back, which is the correct response. We have 6 Banelings morphing in, but is that going to be enough? A lot of SCVs are back, repairing all of the Hellions and Siege Chains. Siege Chains aren't even sieged. He was actually using these specifically to deal with any possible roaches that may be coming in, and Banelings to net on absolutely every Marine. 1 Siege Tank remains, and the supply is 36 to 47 in Notson's favor. Only a few SCVs and Hellions at the natural, but 18 Zerglings about to pop, so these Hellions are not going to be alive for much longer if microed correctly, but the Zerglings are not microed correctly, and Hellions are now 4 left, 1 at really low health, running into the main base. Can Notson defend against this correctly? He's pulling drones, spreading them out almost perfectly. Zerglings are now running in. All of the Hellions are yellow health or below. Notson is not mining, but he has a good amount of minerals to resupply with Zerglings specifically. Now the supplies have differed just a little bit, 37 to 36, but another Siege Saints, 2 Hellion, and 2 Marines at the natural. Optical might be deciding to move out, which is the smart decision. 14 Zerglings are about to pop right now, and I gotta give the lead right now to Notson. I mean, I'm looking at the workers kill count, and only 8 workers killed by Notson at this point, and 12 by Optical. But the thing is that we obviously have Notson on a second base. Notson's now running up to the main base of Optical, going for a surround, 2 Blue Flame Hellions and 1 Siege Chain. He might be able to get enough surround to take these all out, and he does. I mean, looking at the unit count, we have 16 Zerglings to 0-0. SCVs are the only thing that remains. 1 Hellion pops out now, and Notson is in a really, really commanding lead. The only saving grace that might be implemented at this point is that Optical is halfway done with a command center, but I mean, it's 31 drones and 22 SCVs. It's looking good for Notson, but I'm not going to say Optical is completely out of this quite yet. Optical needs to realize, though, he has a ton of gas. He needs to fix that as soon as possible. He needs to get his macro under control. But, I mean, we have him moving out with 3 more Hellions. Only Zerglings out on the field right now. No Spine Crawlers or anything. 1 Queen is at the natural, so he needs to figure something out in order to defend this. He has no Banelings up, only drones in production. If I were Notson right now, I would try to understand that I'm in a pretty dominant lead and play it fairly safe. Getting roaches out is probably a necessity at this point. But holding on that, Notson is now trying to defend against these 3 Blue Flame Hellions. I mean, another 10 workers killed by Optical, so Optical is just, you know, pulling himself back into this game, getting huge worker kills. Looking at it now, it's 27 SCVs to 35 drones. I mean, the only supply difference is the fact that Notson has a lot of Zerglings right now, but the the drone lead isn't too terribly high for this early in the game. It looks like Optical, if able to secure this base, he'll have a pretty decent chance of coming back if he decides to stay on this mech heavy build. It's very easy to turtle up on, and if RevnoxN doesn't, enough mistakes, then it's going to be fairly easy for Optical to come back into this game. And I mean, we're noting that Optical's macro slipped a little bit. He's throwing out a third base, which is not ideal at this point. He's probably not going to use that for a fair bit of time. Optical is now into the natural with 4 more Hellions, a Queen blocking the ramp, and he might get surrounded here, but RevnoxN's Zerglings are in a straight line, getting completely cleaned up by Optical, and all of a sudden the supplies are almost similar. Something I completely missed, though, is the Spire's about to pop, and RevnoxN has been saving up quite a bit to deal with this. He's probably going to get 8 meters out, but hold on that. Optical is now running in with more Hellions, a ton of Zerglings being roasted, 2 Queens trying to defend this, and a lot of Zerglings coming in. He will be able to defend this, but at what cost? 26 drones have now been killed. Looking at the unit count, we have 37 SCVs compared to the 39 drones of RevnoxN. So, I mean, the lead might be in the favor of Optical at this point. We do see that there are 7 meters in production, but there's also a Thor and a lot of missile turrets going up. So it looks like Optical may be able to defend this fairly easily. If the Metis can slip in and get a few kills, that would be hugely needed. Looks like there's 12 that were in production, so 12 Metis will be out in just a moment with the third base of RevnoxN just now completing. So we're kind of at this point of the game where everything's about even. It's going to require either player to screw up pretty heavily for either of them to lose the quote-unquote advantage. Neither of them necessarily have an advantage, but neither are at necessarily a disadvantage either. So it's going to be interesting to see what pans out as these metas are now on the field. A Thor is out, and it's denying RevnoxN any access to the base of Optical. The command center that was in the main base of Optical got turned into a command center, or orbital rather, so now he'll have the chance to drop mules and gain that extra economic boost that he's going to need to he's going to need this orbital to come back into the game, economically speaking, as he did lose a lot of SCVs in that first initial push. But again, RevnoxN just sitting back, making drones, spine crawlers, infestation pit coming up. I'm kind of fearful if Optical decides to sit back too long, it might be somewhat of an issue, but as I said, that he is moving out now. Siege Chain's on the way to the third base, it looks like, and 2 Thors leading the way. Only Zerglings in production, and if this is properly controlled by Optical, using repair correctly, I don't see how RevnoxN will be able to hold this. I mean, 2 Thors versus a small pack of Mutas is, with repairs at that point, I mean, RevnoxN's going to have a big issue holding this. It's 108 supply to 111. 2 Siege Chains in the back and a few Marines unupgraded with a stim. Hellions coming in, poking at the Zerglings. Spine Crawler up and only a few Queens. There's a lot of Banelings coming in, though. So if these Banelings can connect on the Hellions, there might be some hope of RevnoxN holding this off. But good control by both players, magic boxing the Thors. But I think there are too many Metas at this point, taking out the last Thor, and there's no more anti-air except for this one lone Marine. Hellions in the natural, though, disrupting the mining. A ton of workers being roasted right now, but we need to look at this now. Only how many Marines on the field? No Marines on the field, and neither a Thor. A Thor's about to pop, but there's no anti-air for for Optical. But I suppose I missed this Thor. There's 1 Thor out for Optical, but now being taken out. More Hellions in the main base of RevnoxN. There's just a ton of harassment coming out of Optical. He's doing a great job of making sure RevnoxN cannot fall back and just macro up. I'm trying to look at this objectively, and I don't know what Optical can do, because he went for that push. It did a decent amount of damage. Okay, maybe I should have looked at this before I said anything. 43 drones killed by Optical, so maybe he's in a pretty commanding lead. 54 drones to 58 SCVs. RevnoxN is doing alright. There's 8 Metas on the field, about 21 Zerglings, but 4 Hellions, 1 Thor, and 5 Marines out. 4